Imagine a small village called Bethany, just a few kilometers from Jerusalem. A simple place with dirt streets, stone houses, and olive trees everywhere. That's where he lived. Lazarus, a quiet man known by everyone, not only for his kindness, but also for something very special. He was personal friend of Jesus. Lazarus did not live alone. He lived with his two sisters, Martha and Mary. Martha was a practical, active woman who loved to serve, take care of the house, and keep everything in order. Mary, on the other hand, had a more contemplative spirit. She was the type who would stop everything just to listen to Jesus speak. Two different sisters, but united, who loved their brother deeply. This family was very dear to Jesus. They weren't just followers, they were close friends. Whenever Jesus was around, it was common to find him in their home, resting, eating, receiving affection, and sharing words that only true friends hear. Before we continue, make sure you've liked and subscribed to the channel. By doing so, you help spread messages of faith like Story of Lazarus, which shows us Jesus' impressive power over life and death. Your support is crucial for more people to learn about this powerful story from the Bible. Have you clicked the like button yet? Have you subscribed? Well, now let's dive together into this story that reveals the love, compassion, and transformative power of our Lord. Lazarus, Martha, and Mary had no wealth, nor did they hold important positions among the Jews, but they had something that made them special: true faith and a sincere friendship with the Son of God. The bond between them was strong, and as in every true friendship, there was trust, affection, and respect. Jesus loved this family. The Bible is clear when it says in John 11:5, "Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus." It's as if God is reminding us, see, they weren't anonymous to me. They were important. They had a place in my heart. But this peace, this harmony in Bethany would soon be shaken by difficult news, and thus history would take a turn that would mark Lazarus's life and the world's forever. Few knew, but Jesus, the Master, the long-awaited Messiah, was not an isolated, distant, or cold man. He was warm, human, and he deeply loved those he met. And among those few, there was one name that stood out: Lazarus. The Bible doesn't give many details about Lazarus's youth, nor does it describe his exploits. But what we do know is powerful. He was close friend of Jesus. He was not a disciple who merely followed from a distance. He was part of the close circle. He was someone Jesus felt comfortable with, a safe place amid so much persecution, critical eyes, and spiritual burdens. When Jesus needed rest, silence, and a good meal, he went to Lazarus's house. There were no theological discussions or religious trappings. There was only sincere friendship, simple food, and welcoming hearts. Lazarus was a man of faith, and not just him. His sisters also firmly believed that Jesus was more than a man. He was the Son of God. Imagine the conversations that took place in that house. Imagine sitting at the table with Jesus, laughing with him, listening to his stories, seeing his eyes shine as he spoke of the kingdom of heaven. Lazarus experienced this, not for a day or two, but several times. And it wasn't just a one-sided friendship. The biblical text itself makes this clear. Lord, the one you love is sick. John 11:3. The one to whom loves. The word used here in the original Greek is phileo, which speaks of a fraternal, intimate, close love, like that of a brother. It wasn't just respect, it was deep affection. This changes everything. Because when someone you love is suffering, your heart aches. You want to do something, you want to be there. And that's exactly what happened when Lazarus got sick. This friendship between Jesus and Lazarus makes the upcoming events even more intense. After all, when suffering knocks on a friend's door, one expects a response to come quickly. But in Lazarus's case, God had a much greater plan. A plan that neither Martha, nor Mary, nor Lazarus himself could have imagined. That house in Bethany, once filled with laughter and conversation, soon fell silent and shadowed. Lazarus, the strong man, a dear friend of Jesus, began to show signs of a serious illness. We don't know exactly what illness struck him. The Bible doesn't provide medical details, but what we do know is that it was swift and cruel, becoming a source of great concern for Martha and Mary. The sisters, who had always trusted in Jesus' power and care, now faced fear and anxiety. Their hearts raced and their nights became sleepless. They then decided to act in faith. With urgency in their eyes and hope in their hearts, they sent a direct and simple message to Jesus. Lord, the one you love is sick. John 11:3. This seemingly simple phrase carries an immense emotional weight. It's a plea for help, a cry for help, a plea for Jesus to come and heal the one he loved so much. Martha and Mary believed, with all the strength a daughter can muster, that Jesus would appear soon, that he would reach out and drive away the disease. After all, if he loved Lazarus, why would he let the disease take him? But something strange happened. Jesus, upon receiving the news, didn't immediately leave for Bethany. He stayed where he was for 2 more days. To Martha, Mary, and all who were waiting, Jesus' silence seemed like abandonment, a painful mystery. Imagine their feelings, hope mixed with doubt, fear growing with each passing hour. What was happening? Why wasn't the Master, who had already healed so many, coming quickly to save their friend? These moments of uncertainty are profound. They remind us that life, even for those with faith, has its waiting times, its difficult moments, its seemingly endless pains. But behind this delay was a divine purpose, a greater plan to display God's glory in a way no one would ever forget. When Martha and Mary sent Jesus the message that Lazarus was sick, they certainly expected a quick response, an urgent, "I'm coming." But Jesus' response was different, unexpected, and for many, even incomprehensible. Jesus didn't hurry. He stayed where he was for 2 more days. Imagine the anxiety and anguish growing in the Bethany household with each passing hour without news as Lazarus struggled with his illness. Then Jesus finally speaks to his disciples, and his words sound enigmatic and powerful. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. John 11:4. Think about it. Jesus wasn't saying Lazarus wouldn't die. In fact, he would. But Lazarus's death wasn't the end. It was part of a larger plan, something that would reveal glory and power of God in a way even more impressive than a simple cure. It's as if Jesus was saying, this pain, this loss, this tragedy will show us something no one has seen before, a promise hidden behind the mystery of illness. The disciples are confused. They don't understand that Lazarus is dead. They think he's just asleep. Jesus uses the word "fell asleep" to refer to death because, for him, death is just a pause before the resurrection. And then, with a firm tone, Jesus announces, "Let us return to Judea." John 11:7. Returning to a dangerous place where the religious authorities already wanted to kill him. A place where his own life was at risk. But his love for Lazarus and his desire to reveal God's power spoke louder than fear. This response from Jesus is surprising because it shows that he sees beyond the immediate pain. He understands the whole story, the final outcome. For him, illness and death do not have the final word. For Martha and Mary, this would not yet be clear. They lived in the present, in suffering, in uncertainty. But Jesus already knew what he would do. And that's when the heart of the story begins to beat faster, because the wait is coming to an end, and the miracle that would change everything was about to happen. Imagine the house in Bethany at that time. Martha, Mary, and the family and friends who loved Lazarus were there, their hearts heavy, their eyes teary, and the silence heavy. The disease was advancing, and Jesus, the one who could do anything, remained distant. What was going through Martha and Mary's minds? What feelings dominated them? Suddenly, the hope they carried began to mix with anguish, fear, and perhaps even doubt. Why doesn't he come? Why is he taking so long? Has he forgotten our friend, our brother? This silence from Jesus wasn't just a physical distance. It was a silence that hurt, a silence that weighed on the hearts of those who waited. Those hours, perhaps days, dragged slowly by, as if time had stopped to further heighten the tension. For Martha and Mary, what hurt most was not only Lazarus's suffering, but the feeling of being alone in the midst of the storm. These two strong women had to deal with the fear of what would come next. Death was at their door, a silent and implacable enemy, and within this silence, a mixture of deep human feelings, the faith that insists on believing, the hope that does not yet die, but also the anguish of waiting, the loneliness of the moment, the pain of the absence of the one they love. How many times in our lives have we felt this way, waiting for answers, waiting for help, and feeling God's silence? This moment is so real, so human, that it connects us deeply with the story. But behind this apparent delay, there was a divine purpose that Martha, Mary, and even we would only understand later. Jesus had not forgotten. He was not oblivious to suffering. On the contrary, he was preparing something that would reveal God's heart in an extraordinary way, an act that would show that death does not have the final word. God's silence, however painful it may seem, can be a preparation for a greater miracle. As time passed, Martha and Mary might have wondered, will he really arrive in time? Is there any hope? And so Bethany waited, and with her, all of us who have faced moments of waiting, doubt, and pain. After those 2 days of waiting, the decisive moment finally arrives. Jesus, who until then had remained distant, makes a firm and courageous decision. He goes to Bethany, to the house of Lazarus. But it wasn't just a simple trip. Jesus knew he was going to a dangerous place. Judea, where Bethany was located, was controlled by religious leaders who hated him and were already plotting his death. The disciples, worried, tried to dissuade him. They said, "Rabbi, they want to stone you there." John 11:8. Imagine the atmosphere in that caravan heading to Bethany. On one side, the disciples' hearts were heavy, fearful for the Master's life. On the other, Jesus, calm, with unshakable confidence, guided by God's purpose. Jesus is about to face not only the grief of that family, but also the fury of the religious leaders who saw him as a threat. This decision reveals how much Jesus valued his friend Lazarus and the greater plan that was at work. Along the way, the Master teaches his disciples about death, saying that Lazarus had fallen asleep and that he would awaken him. To them, this was a puzzle. How could someone who is dead simply wake up? But for Jesus, death is only a temporary passage, a brief pause before the true life that God grants. He prepares the hearts of his followers for the miracle that is about to happen. Arriving in Bethany, Jesus meets Martha, who runs to meet him, filled with grief and faith at the same time. Martha rebukes Jesus with words filled with emotion. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." John 11:21. Martha expresses her sadness at the loss, but also her belief in Jesus' authority, making it clear to her that he could have prevented all of this. This moment marks the meeting of two realities, the human, made of pain and doubt, and the divine, which brings hope and life. Jesus responds to Martha with a promise that echoes to this day, "Your brother will rise again." John 11:23. And this promise was not vague or distant. It was an absolute certainty, a sign of the power of the Son of God over life and death. By deciding to return to Bethany, Jesus wasn't just heading to a familiar place, he was walking into a real trap. Judea was hostile territory for him, where the religious leaders were already plotting against his life. They wanted not only to discredit him, but to eliminate him altogether. The disciples, aware of this reality, try to warn Jesus of the imminent danger. "Master, they want to stone you there." John 11:8. They were worried, afraid for their friend, their leader, the man who guided them. The threat was real and constant, and returning to such a place could be a death sentence. But Jesus doesn't hesitate. He doesn't shy away from danger. His love for Lazarus, and even more so his greater mission to reveal God's glory, are stronger than any fear. Jesus knows that there in that house, in that tomb, a miracle will happen, a miracle that will not only save a life, but that will show everyone the power he has over death. It is as if Jesus were telling his disciples, and us as well, that even in the face of danger and adversity, divine purpose must prevail. This moment reminds us that faith often requires courage, boldness, and the willingness to face risks to do what is right. As Jesus walks toward Lazarus's house, he carries not only love for his friend, but the certainty that victory over death is about to happen. When Jesus finally arrives in Bethany, a small town full of pain at that moment, the reality he finds is much more difficult than Martha, Mary, and the disciples could have imagined. Lazarus was already dead 4 days ago. In Jewish culture at the time, this detail was extremely important. The custom was to bury the dead quickly, usually on the same day, because decomposition began quickly, especially in hot climates like Palestine. Furthermore, it was believed that the soul remained close to the body for the first 3 days. After this period, the connection between soul and body was considered more distant, and return to life was nearly impossible. Thus, upon learning that Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days, Martha and the others had already lost all hope of a resurrection miracle. To them, death seemed final, real, and irreversible. Imagine the despair and suffering the family and friends felt at that moment. The tomb was not just a resting place, it was a symbol of absence, of loss, of end. The house that had once been filled with life was now clothed in mourning and silence. Jesus knew all of this. He knew that Martha and Mary's faith was being tested in that moment, that their suffering was profound, that the pain of loss was palpable. But he also knew he was there to transform reality. Upon arriving, Jesus finds Martha. She runs to meet him, the pain visible on her face and in her words, but still firm in her faith, saying, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." John 11:21. Her words aren't just a complaint. They're a mix of sadness and hope. She believes Jesus could have prevented death, and she still believes he could do something now. Jesus responds to this mixture of faith and pain with one of the most profound statements in the Bible. "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live." John 11:25. He is not just talking about Lazarus, but about something much greater. The power he has over death itself, the promise of eternal life for all who believe in him. This verse brings both comfort and challenge as it confronts the reality of death with the hope of life that Jesus offers. Besides Martha, Mary also appears, and upon seeing her and those accompanying her weep, Jesus is deeply moved. Moved, Jesus weeps, a moment that reveals God's humanity and his deep empathy for human suffering. Finally, Jesus heads to the tomb, a cave with a large stone blocking the entrance. He orders the stone rolled away despite Martha's hesitation, who points out that it has been 4 days and that the body's odor would be strong. But Jesus insists, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" John 11:40. Then, at the height of expectation, Jesus raises his eyes to heaven and prays, showing that everything he is about to do is for the glory of the Father. And then Jesus' voice echoes loud and clear, "Lazarus, come out." John 11:43. And the impossible happens. Lazarus emerges from the tomb, still wrapped in his burial cloths, alive and breathing, a miracle that leaves everyone speechless. This miracle wasn't just about one man's life. It was a powerful demonstration of Jesus' power over death, a sign of hope for all humanity. When Jesus arrives in Bethany, the house that was once a haven of peace is plunged into a heavy silence, laden with sadness. Lazarus's absence weighs heavily on every corner, in every look of the sisters, Martha and Mary, who now face the harshest of pains, the loss of a beloved brother. Martha is the first to encounter Jesus. She rushes out to greet him, her steps quick and anguished, her heart heavy. Her words are a mixture of lament and faith. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." John 11:21. At this moment, Martha is not only expressing her grief, but also her deep belief in Jesus' power. She knows he could have prevented Lazarus' death. Her words carry a faint hope, a silent plea for Jesus to do something, to act now. Soon after, Mary appears, also overcome with grief. Unlike her sister, Mary doesn't go out to find Jesus, but stays at home, sitting, weeping. She weeps deeply, her tears reflecting the pain that grips the human heart when facing death. The Bible says that when Jesus arrives, he sees Mary and all those with her weeping. And then one of the most touching and human moments in history happens. Jesus wept. John 11:35. This verse, the shortest in the Bible, reveals so much. Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah, feels the pain of human suffering. He is not a distant, indifferent God. He is a God who is moved, who understands sadness, who weeps alongside those who suffer. Jesus' weeping shows that suffering is real, that loss hurts deeply, and that there is no shame in shedding tears. This simultaneously human and divine scene teaches that God is with us in our most difficult moments. For Martha and Mary, Jesus' presence, his weeping, is a silent comfort. It's as if he's saying, "I know what you're feeling. I'm here with you." But the story doesn't stop with suffering. Jesus didn't come just to comfort, but to transform pain into hope. He walks to Lazarus's tomb, where the stone weighs down the entrance, a symbol of the end, of the definitive separation. Martha, still heavy-hearted, hesitates when Jesus orders the stone removed. She knows what comes next. She knows the smell, the meaning of death. But Jesus encourages her with firm and faith-filled words. "Didn't I tell you that if you believe you will see the glory of God?" John 11:40. This is the invitation for faith, not to be shaken in the face of reality, so that the impossible can be believed. The moment is one of expectation, tension, and hope. It is an invitation for all of us to believe even when everything seems lost. The weeping of Martha and Mary, the weeping of Jesus, the pain, the hope, all converge into a miracle that goes beyond the physical. It is a miracle that touches the soul and reveals the heart of God to humanity. Imagine the scene. Jesus stands before Lazarus's house, surrounded by Martha, Mary, and many friends, silently mourning the loss of their beloved brother. The air is heavy, laden with sadness, and the hearts of everyone present seem to be heavy, as if the pain were physical. Jesus, the Son of God, the one who came into the world to save and to show the infinite love of the Father, is there, observing everything with eyes that know the depth of human pain. And then he does something that surprises and touches everyone. Jesus cried. 2 letters, a verse with only 2 words. Jesus wept. John 11:35. But an act that reveals immeasurable depth. Why? Why does Almighty God, who knows he will soon resurrect Lazarus, allow himself to be overcome by sadness, by human feelings? Because he is completely God, but also completely man. Jesus is not a distant being, oblivious to people's suffering. He cares. He suffers with them. When he sees the tears of Martha and Mary, he feels the pain of loss, the injustice of death and separation. He feels the weight of mortality that human beings face. Jesus weeps because he knows the fragility of life, because he understands the sadness that mourning brings to the heart, because he knows the emptiness that absence leaves. But more than that, he weeps because sin entered the world, bringing death as the enemy of life, a reality he came to overcome. This moment is one of the greatest demonstrations of empathy and divine love that we can imagine. And it's also an invitation to all of us who watch or hear this story. We don't need to hide our tears. We don't need to pretend we're always strong. God understands. God cries with us. Some scholars believe that Jesus may also have been weeping over what sin has brought to the world: pain, death, separation. In that moment, he shows himself vulnerable, showing that God's love is real, palpable, human. Jesus' cry serves to comfort and give hope. He is there not only as the master who will perform a miracle, but as a friend who suffers alongside us, who understands our pain, who is present in our most difficult moments. It's as if he were saying, "I don't abandon you, even when all seems lost. I see your pain and feel your sadness." And the strength of this moment precedes the great miracle that is to come. After this cry, Jesus prepares to command the greatest demonstration of power and life that Lazarus and all the people present would never forget. Arriving at the burial site of Lazarus, Jesus encounters a scene charged with symbolism and emotion. Lazarus's tomb was not a simple hole in the ground, but a natural cave carved into the rock. A common sight in first-century Palestine, it was a cold, dark, silent and stuffy space where the body of the deceased was laid to rest. At the entrance to this cave, a huge round stone served as a seal over the tomb, protecting it from animals and bad odors, and preventing the tomb from being desecrated. Imagine the weight of that stone, large, solid, too heavy to be easily moved. It was the physical barrier between death and life, between absence and hope. Martha, seeing Jesus approach the tomb, feels her pain return. Although faith still lives in her heart, the sight of that stone seems like an insurmountable wall. She knows her brother's body is already in an advanced state of decomposition, as 4 days have passed since his death. In that hot climate, organic matter deteriorates rapidly, and the smell of death is strong and pungent. Upon hearing Jesus order the stone to be removed, Martha hesitates and even protests. "Sir, it already stinks because it's been 4 days." John 11:39. She was right, for Jewish custom was not only to bury quickly, but to maintain a certain ritualistic respect for cleanliness and purity. The stone. There was not only a physical barrier, but also a symbol of the irreversible reality of death. However, Jesus, firm in his faith and authority, responds with a word full of power and encouragement. "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" John 11:40. In these words, he invites Martha and all of us to look beyond the natural, to believe in the impossible, to have hope even in the most difficult circumstances. As the servants and friends remove the heavy stone, the damp air and smell of the tomb begin to permeate. The darkness of the cave is broken only by the sunlight streaming in through the open entrance. This moment carries a deep symbolism. The stone that symbolizes death is about to be removed to make way for life. Jesus is about to defy the laws of nature and time, to reveal a power that only he possesses. For all present, anticipation grows. The silence is broken only by the sound of the stone being removed, revealing the empty, or nearly empty, tomb that holds the body of the beloved man. This moment is a metaphor for the hope that can break through the barriers of fear and despair. It is the harbinger of a new life, of a new beginning. Before performing the miracle that everyone expected, or perhaps not yet expected, Jesus does something that reveals a lot about his mission, his communion with God, and the meaning of that moment. He raises his eyes to heaven and prays. Imagine the scene. Jesus stands before the tomb entrance, the stone already rolled away, surrounded by Martha, Mary, disciples, and other grieving and expectant people. The strong smell of death hangs in the air. The silence is almost palpable, and hearts are heavy with anxiety. And at that moment, Jesus turns to the Father. He raises his eyes to heaven, a gesture that demonstrates total dependence, communion, and submission to the divine will. He does this not because he needs the Father's power to perform the miracle. After all, as the Son of God, he himself has the authority, but because he wants everyone present to know that what is about to happen is not the result of human strength, but of the will and sovereign power of God. Jesus prays aloud for all to hear, so that the miracle will be not only a demonstration of power, but a public testimony to the glory of God. At that moment, he thanks the Father for always listening to him and for being present in every situation, even the most difficult ones. This prayer is an act of surrender and trust, a recognition that all life, all victory, and all miracles come from the Father. It shows the perfect unity between Jesus and God, the eternal communion between the Son and the Father. It also reveals a profound lesson, that our prayers, especially in the most difficult moments, are a way of connecting with heaven, of placing our pain and hopes in the hands of God. As Jesus prays, the hearts of those who follow him are filled with expectation and renewed faith. They understand that something great is about to happen. Jesus' prayer is like the opening of a portal between heaven and earth, a moment when the supernatural begins to act upon the natural. It sets the stage for the miracle of the resurrection. Jesus does not act alone. He acts in perfect communion with God, showing that the glory to come belongs entirely to the Father. This moment of prayer is a powerful lesson for all of us. In the midst of difficulties, prayer is the bridge that connects us to divine strength and love. And then, with the prayer still echoing in the hearts of those present, Jesus prepares to speak the words that would change everything. The moment everyone had been waiting for had arrived. After a deep and faith-filled prayer, Jesus turned toward the tomb. The atmosphere was filled with a mixture of silence, tension, and hope. All eyes fixed on that spot, anxious, holding their breath. Then, with authority and power that only he could have, Jesus raised his voice and spoke, "Lazarus, and come out." John 11:43. This command seemed impossible, even absurd to those present. How could a man who had been dead for 4 days simply hear and respond? This call broke the laws of nature, defied logic, and confronted the reality of death. But Jesus' call was more than just a voice. It was a declaration of divine power, a manifestation of love that conquers the impossible. It was the sound of life breaking through the prison of death. From within the tomb, something extraordinary happened. Footsteps began to echo, and a figure wrapped in funeral vestments slowly appeared at the cave entrance. It was Lazarus, the man everyone believed was lost forever. Imagine the reaction of those present: shock, disbelief, joy mixed with reverent fear. Friends, family, and even the disciples marveled at this miracle. Lazarus emerged from the tomb, still covered with the bandages, a symbol of his passage through the world of the dead, but now alive, breathing, touching the earth, present among the living again. That moment changed everything. It wasn't just Lazarus's life that was renewed, it was the hope of an entire generation. It was proof that Jesus had power over death, that he was truly the Son of God. And not only that, the miracle of Lazarus was an advance sign of Jesus' own resurrection, which would come later. Jesus' call echoes for all of us today, a summons to emerge from our spiritual graves, to be reborn, to live a full life in God. When Lazarus emerges alive from the tomb, the crowd is both amazed and frightened. Many begin to believe in Jesus as the Messiah, while others are incredulous or even fearful of the power he displays. This miracle shakes the foundations of the community and reinforces Jesus' power over life and death. This extraordinary miracle, while bringing hope and faith to many, also intensifies opposition to Jesus. The religious leaders feel threatened and begin to plot more vigorously to arrest and kill him, as they see his power growing and his message winning over the people. The resurrection of Lazarus is a crucial turning point that leads Jesus to the path of the cross. Did this story touch your heart? If it made you reflect on faith, courage, and hope, I invite you to leave a like below. Like this video so more people can learn about this powerful example of love and life that spans centuries. And don't forget, Share in the comments what you learned from Lazarus's story, or perhaps a life-changing experience of faith. Your story may inspire others. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Until the next video, with more Bible stories that renew the soul and strengthen faith. May God bless you and your family.